Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you, of course, from the site of MegaCon 2023, Orlando, Florida. That's actually Pine Hills, just west of Orlando, Florida, as we like to call it, in the Pine Hills Palace, in the Xtreme Studios here. I have from the Great Midwest RDV tonight's movie. It's a special gem for me personally. It's Michael Mann's Thief, his directorial debut, starring James Caan and Tuesday Weld, and a few other people in there as well. And I want to kind of set the stage here so we'll start rolling in the chat here. I went on record a few weeks ago, RDV, you, of course, were here. No, when I did, I said I think this is probably James Caan's greatest individual performance, better than The Godfather. I think the scene in a diner is the best of the movie. There's a lot of things about Michael Mann I'm going to be bringing up here. Obviously, when I'm going to do Miami Vice, Collateral, and Heat, I said this movie's as good as those movies are better. A lot of people are going to shit on or not or whatever. But first, RDV, I'm going to do something that we never really get into here on the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm going to get into politics. What I'm going to say is the story here, what I think makes it better than Heat, Collateral, and some other movies is that it doesn't necessarily take a side of what politics you're in or whatever. This is really about the struggle of an individual person trying to make it, and whether you agree with what he's doing or breaking a law or not or what, I don't think it's really relevant. And I always love the fact that when you watch, say, Miami Vice for the most part, or even his later movies, you don't get a sense that anybody's a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, is gun control, anti-gun control. I think that's relevant because in the 80s, you get a lot of movies having to deal with cops, the law, and actually one thing that Michael Mann does a lot, governments, drug dealing. He just kind of picks out what's going on at the time and uses it as a backdrop for the story he's about to tell, which again focuses on people. And I think that was really smart on his part here because, again, this is an older film. It's from, I think, 81. It's got a great score by Tangerine Dream in it that really helps. And it has a certain aesthetic to it that Michael Mann obviously is known for with wet streets and cityscapes and bodies of water and people talking and natural light stuff that I personally love. And if you're not a big James Caan fan, I get it, but he's definitely, I would argue, on that short list of a man's man. He comes across as just really driven in here. And like I said, between the conversation him and Tuesday Weld having here, it really nails it. It's kind of one of those movies that you don't watch a lot, but when it's on, you're like, damn, this is really, really good. But I'm curious. I think for you, this was a first watch. Is that correct?
Yeah, this was a first watch for me. I didn't know what to go into it. Didn't watch a trailer. Didn't read up about it. I just know it's James Caan on the cover there. It shows like he's a thief. And some of the posters had him, where he's. So I was like, well, this is a weird poster. And then I realized, oh, he's wearing a welding mask.
Yes.
The goggles. So I was like, so I kind of didn't know what to expect from this, and the music is the one thing that's you always remember of this movie. It's Tangerine Dream. And I had to look them up after those done. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what Michael Mann is. This guy did Miami Vice. Because I've never watched Miami Vice. I've seen clips here, but I don't really know the whole thing other than it's John Johnson, and Rob's got a hard on for John Johnson. So
it's John Johnson, and the man has great hair, and he delivers every time.
So, like I said, now I was like, oh my gosh, like now it all makes sense. Like, it's like this movie is pretty much a prelude to Miami Vice. When you watch it, all he's missing is the partner. It's just you got. What I really liked about this, you had the corrupt cops. I don't want to really say corrupt, but I mean like they were not very by the book. And that's kind of like a thing you don't really see as much more in movies.
You definitely don't, but it was James everywhere, right?
Yeah, James Caan was, I believe, Caan. I think he was in The Godfather, wasn't he?
Correct, and he was known for that back in the early 70s. He's
yes,
been around, I think, since the late 60s,
so, he did this movie, and then he did another movie called The Keep, which never got a DVD release. But then eventually, like I said, this kind of helped launch his career, make him a better known actor. He was in the Godfather, but like it's really this movie I think is really going to stand out. This would be a Nicolas Cage movie today, and they would make it hokey.
Cage. I'll go on a limb and I'll interject this while people are starting to file in the chat here.
Hey, Verdi.
Yeah, Verdi's Princess is in. One movie I keep pushing for, wanting to do, and I hope that we get to it over the summer here with James Caan, and it is a movie called Brian's Song in it, because to me it's one of the best bromance type films that are out there, and it may not strike a chord with a lot of people today or the younger audience, but it's something that it's definitely worth tackling because it is really, really good. And again, Thief we're talking about, it's over 40 years old. So if you think about it, that's like watching the 40s films with Humphrey Bogart back when, I was a kid in the 80s, let's say. And it's amazing to think, wow, it was 40 years ago. But yeah, for a first watch for you, what are some of the things that stood out to you just as far as the character that he plays?
The character, like I said, this is really cool because he's you're not supposed to like him. I mean, I don't think you are. This is a movie where there's so many seedy people, but you kind of want to back Frank in this, James Caan's character, because he's trying to just be his own man. He finally he comes across this girl, played by Tuesday Weld, and he kind of falls in love with her, and he kind of wants to give up the life. The cops are after him, are basically pressuring him because he's an ex-convict. They know that the mob's basically wants him to do some big score. And he basically, they have to cut him loose after he said he. I love it. He's like, it's like, why would I tell anybody like you greasy prick? It's like, Willie Nelson is in this. This is a shock too. Willie Nelson is his.
Oh, you did not know that? Do you know who Willie Nelson is or was?
Well, of course, yeah. Well, yeah, I know who he is.
Asking.
Yeah. But like, I didn't expect him to see in the role like this in this movie. I was like, okay, this is kind of unexpected. Like I said, I went into this blind. I didn't look up who as far as cast and stuff. I just know it was James Caan. So it was cool seeing Willie Nelson's parts in here, as small as they are. But like I said, he plays his not like an ex partner, but basically ex roommate. I think it's
like a father figure, really.
Yeah, father figure, and he needs money to bail him out for parole. So he's gonna do a job. He ends up getting involved working for the mob. Against his better judgment. And like, yeah, the cops basically want to shake him down because they want to know. We heard you're doing something big going down. You're going to tell us, and you're just, yeah. It's just, like I said, this is a movie that flew under my radar. I've never seen it anywhere. Literally, I've never seen it at Walmart or anything, because usually, like, one of these movies will pop up, and this takes place in Chicago, which is cool. You get to see a lot of the Chicago high rises stuff back in their day. This is 1981, so whenever I go to like the places, I try to like imagine myself driving down, and imagine what it looked like back in the 80s or 70s before all the stuff with buildings were built, was before there. There's a lot of things changed over the years. So I like the basically the scenery and stuff. We talk about we talk about the Chuck Norris movies, the setting stuff. So this is always cool to see. And then when he starts working, what's really cool about this is when he starts working with the mob. You're like, we got a guy who's gonna work with you. I'm like, okay, who is it? The Jim Belushi. It's like this is not a movie that I would expect to have these characters, Willie Nelson and Jim Belushi. I expect James Caan and a bunch of nobodies. Yeah, but there is what is the guy's name? Robert Prosky is the guy I noticed that stood out the most. Robert Prosky, he plays he's I think he's the guy with the mustache, right? With the shotgun at the end.
Yeah, he's known on there as well as the main fence guy, Leo.
Leo? So Leo, did you know at the time of this film he was actually a cop? Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. It's like,
well,
what?
Your comment about James Caan working with you thought would be a bunch of nobodies is interesting, because the more you start watching films or older films and you see actors today, you go back and you go, oh, these are some of the earlier films. And it's interesting with the crossover, because definitely by the 70s and 80s, not only did you have major motion picture stars showing up on television, things like The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, those kinds of things, you also had a younger group of people coming up that would be acting in the 80s. So if you go back and watch Main Vice, you see Bruce Willis before he's on Moonlighting. You see Ed O'Neill, give me the drug money or die, on a payphone. You see a lot of people on there. And so it was interesting because, to me, Leo, the main fence, man, when he's talking to him about what he needs on, this guy, every time he's on screen, is compelling. And the guy you're mentioning there too, there's a level of authenticity that's brought to these roles. Like we've said before, you can look the role, but you can also be the role if you're somebody that's like that. In our recent review, obviously, of John Wick 4, I popped obviously very hard for the Scott Adamson character, Killa, just him, laughing all the time. I mean, it's still to this day, I'm hearing his voice going, and who wants to kill you, John Wick? I'm thinking he just had a lot of fun with it. That helps make a movie. When you've got guys like
Yeah,
this in this movie that
like
were actual thieves and safecrackers that helped Michael Mann choreograph everything, James Caan learned how to actually crack a safe, all that stuff translates onto the film. Because let's be honest, as much as Ocean's 11 is pretty and sexy and there's a lot of good looking scenes in it, it is more romantic in that notion rather than dealing with the hardcore nature of why we're doing the heist and what it's good for. And there it's a little more goofy, whereas here it's very serious. Here's a guy, to your point,
yeah,
that's lost a lot of time, and in his great speech that he has in the diner with Tuesday Weld, the lady he's starting to date,
yep.
I will say this, it'll be a bit of a shock to some people. He kind of manhandles her because he's running late, picking her up for a date, sits her down, and he gives her basically what's going to happen, and you can either be with me or not. And I'm like, you do not, to your point, see scenes like this at all
The
anymore
car
in
scene
movies.
too.
Yeah. Oh
Talk
yeah.
about he's got to watch and do this, it's like I'm a made man. It's like it's like the last time I saw anything like this, a guy talking to someone like that was like Breaking Bad with the I'm the one who knocks. uh, so now the ending, I was like, oh, he basically, because he gets in trouble. The mob basically is like, I own your I'll kill your family if you don't, you work for us. You cannot leave, and he actually basically tells her, like, he goes into his, like, the Jesse, it's like 11:30 at night on the clock. It's other, and he basically walks in and says, like, wake up, grab the kid. Our marriage is over. Like, and you need to get out of here because you're in danger. I hope in this movie we see Frank. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, so he's able to survive at the end.
Yep.
Being shot. I do, and they don't, even though they just show him walking away into the night. Surprisingly, no cop cars coming towards him because I think people would call the cops around the neighborhood.
This is the 80s, bro. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
10
I
to
know.
midnight, Bronson, bam, boom, roll
Yeah.
credits.
So my thing is, like, I like to pretend is that he got back with his wife. Eventually, found her and got back, and they had a happy ending. That's my thing. Because sucks, man. It's like he didn't ask for this, and it's like I said, yeah. The fact that he survived, I thought they would have had him just die in the middle of the street right there.
Well, I think, whether the ending's important or not, I don't really know. But I just think it's such a powerful character because I'm going to relate it to something a bit more contemporary and occultish. Actually, believe it or not, I was getting a little bit of a movie that I'm very fond of too. Roman Polanski's The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp in it plays basically like a book detective. He's a sleazy slime bag guy, and Johnny Depp's fantastic in it. And he's hired to go authenticate this book that might be written by the devil himself. And it's kind of interesting, and if you like those kind of films, that it's just a wonderful performance. But what happens is you find out that Johnny Depp's character, even though he's a sleaze bag and he's horrible, he's actually, as the movie goes on, the least ugly, relative speaking, out of all the other characters that you come across. And so that's what I kind of think of here with James Caan's character, is that when he's in this movie, you go, man, this guy's in prison, he did something bad. You hear the story of why, so we'll leave that for you to judge whether you like him or not because of it. But some of the intensity in some of these scenes, I think, makes you go, okay, now I understand why he's so driven. It makes sense, and you almost root for him, because when somebody's had a hard life and they can't make up for lost ground, it's like he tells his girl there in the diner, he's like, look, I can't make up for a long time. I've lost like 10, 12 years here or whatever. He goes, I can't run fast enough. I'm going to do my one big score. This is what I want. I want the American dream. He's not bullshitting around. He's kind of the chase. She respects that out of him as a man because she does like him, but she didn't really realize all this. So it's just one of those things where you get yourself in a situation with somebody where you got to cut out all the bullshit and say, hey, this is what's going on. Either you're with me or you're not. And it's okay if you're not, that's fine. But that strength of conviction that he has to have all that, and he does have it all. He doesn't screw it up. The problem is Leo, his boss, decides to kind of take advantage of him, and he knows right then and there it's not going to work out well. So he's extremely street smart, but just he knows human character. And there's even the subplot with him and his wife going to adopt, which, take it for what you want out of it or whatever. It shows a lot about how inept the government system is. And of course, that's one facet of it. You mentioned before crooked cops too, but he's a complete pro at what he does, and that's something that Michael Mann likes to demonstrate. If you watched Heat, if you watch Collateral, Miami Vice, of course, you've got people that know what the fuck they're doing, and they do it well, and they're not sitting there marking out for themselves as a character doing it. It's just part of, the business of doing your job. You're expected to be competent at it. You're not supposed to celebrate that you're competent at it. That's your job. Go do your job. That is lost, I think, in a lot of roles today too. So yeah, the stuff with him breaking in, I think, is like secondary. That's just what he has to do or whatever, but the characters, I think, are just really fleshed out. Is there anything about some of these scenes coming up with some of the characters that you're like, holy shit, I haven't seen this in a while, or it really kind of made an imprint on you?
It says as far as the characters, like it says, like Willie Nelson was the one that really shocked the most. I haven't heard anything from Willie Nelson in years. That was a beer fest, but I'm like, I don't really look. I never look at his IMDb, see what exactly he is. He's basically a singer. Like, I know he's, and I thought he just recently got into acting. For some of those movies, because like Chuck Norris, guy, like he does cameos here, does like Dodgeball does that. Willie Nelson was a beer fest at the end. It's like, I thought these guys, didn't really have movie careers. I thought they just did kind of cameos towards the end. Like Chuck Norris, we knew he had in movies, but like Will Nelson, didn't expect him to have a really big, movie career.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, it's right, just Jim Belushi coming out of nowhere, and this is probably one of his earlier films.
Everybody remembers Jim Belushi, and of course, when he died, that was something to be on Saturday Night Live. But his brother, I think, is obviously the better actor. And
John's the one that died, sir.
Well, John, but Jim, we've covered him in was it that dog movie, Canine, or whatever the hell it was? But he's been in some good stuff before, some entertaining things.
We actually covered a movie he was in too, another one before this. I thought we did. Oh yeah, it was we're talking about it. It's Red Dawn? No, not Red Dawn. What's it called? It's Red something. Red Heat. Red Heat.
Yes, with Schwarzenegger.
Yes. We covered that one. Yeah,
we did. That's right. We did both of those.
Yeah. So seeing him in this, like I said, like he's like, like I didn't know what to expect from him. Is he gonna play a bad guy in this? Or is he gonna play like the normal, typical guy he does? And he plays Barry, and Barry doesn't make it. Yeah, it's pretty graphic. But yeah, as Verity's Princess pointing out in the chat, they blew up his freaking house, and then they blew up his car lot. Yeah, like you said, like this is a movie. Like I thought he was gonna die at the end. I'm like, this is, oh man, he just lost his marriage. He's got to take out, clean his house. He's being a man. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna take out Leo. And this I'm thinking like, oh, he's not coming back from this. Like, they're gonna have like just bleed out into the street, and that's gonna be it. Thief.
I want to say this about well, there's two things at least more that I know I want to get into. One of them is going to be Tuesday Weld's character, his girlfriend / wife. I'll just say this about her. I know Eric Breen, one of our longstanding followers here on the Xtreme movie shows, I think mentioned her before, and we've talked about some older classic movies, but she's had a very we like to see, we don't get into politics or too much backstory stuff, but she's been known for having a troubled actress type life growing up and everything too. But I just gotta sit there and say, it's quite obvious when you're seeing them there, they look like average ordinary people, and she's just absolutely gorgeous even at her age that she is in here in this movie. They seem right together. He's not like 50 and she's 25 and all this other kind of stuff. It's not like her looks are so deceptively incredible that you're stunned by just how incredibly good looking she is, that you're not paying attention to what's going on in the scene. That can be a distraction when someone's too good looking or dressed too provocatively or not appropriate or whatever. And so when I see her here and there, the way she's dressed and all that, but when you look at her face and her talking and you look at older pictures of her, you're like, holy crap, that beauty is still there. So I thought her character is pretty interesting. But the one thing I definitely wanted to bring up as well is we had talked before about the role of guns in movies, whether you're pro-gun, anti-gun. We're not really, discussing that so much, is that Michael Mann himself has always been an avid connoisseur of making sure that when he does have violence, it's graphic, it's realistic as possible. And we mentioned before how Collateral with Tom Cruise just how the gunshots in there are unlike anything you've heard of, right? And so I know John Wick's all the rage now with everything that's
Mhm.
going, but you may feel a little desensitized to him because it seems like an action video game. But in this movie, to your point about Jim Belushi getting whacked out pretty hard and the ending with the explosions, Michael Mann has a way of making you just feel how powerful they are with it. I
Sure,
definitely got that sense in here.
Jim Belushi getting whacked, and then I'm not gonna spoil it, but somebody gets whacked in John Wick 4, and that was just emotional to me. But this might be a little bit more emotional, for different reasons, Yeah, and you're talking about Tuesday Weld, man. Like her name's Susan Kerr, but she was born on a Friday. Her dad died 3 days later, so she became the breadwinner of her family. She became a childhood actress, and so they called her Tuesday because that's when her dad died. And or I don't know if she took the name but somehow she got stuck with the name.
Right.
And then she quit acting in 2001. She wasn't really acting that much, but did a lot of different kind of movies, TV series stuff, TV movies. This was like her. I think this was like her big role. Who's this?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Suburbia too here in a moment, but continue, please.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to address something. I said Robert Prosky before, and I got confused with Dennis Farina. Dennis Farina is the one at the end with the shotgun. He was a cop at the time of this movie when they're filming.
Yes, and he ends up being in Miami Vice and other things too as an 80s.
Yes.
You're right. There you go.
Yeah. But Robert Prosky, he's a well-known actor. Sadly he passed away, I think, a couple of years ago, or maybe longer than that. But yeah, you get a Rizzi and Boresco, the two cops, and two corrupt cops. Like I said, everyone in this movie, whether you recognize them before or not, they are exceptionally well at what they do and as their roles. They're relatable. So like I said, it's James Caan with his glasses on. He's got his used car lot. He uses the front, and the fact that this is the early 80s, there was no freaking smartphone, cell phone, so you could get away with a lot of stuff. I think there were payphones. Yeah, there were payphones, but
oh
yeah, man. Like I said, everything watching this is it's basically like watching it's basically time in a bottle.
It is, because one of the things I put there in chat was Michael Mann was really great at creating a vibe. And first and foremost, movies are visual to me. We can talk about how you and I may have a preference for characters, because if we don't like them or can't relate to them, who gives a shit? And I know sometimes the fantastical elements of John Wick can turn some people off, but it is a movie that you're supposed to check your brain at the door, I think. So it just depends on it. And I just find Michael Mann's movies, with their use of a lot of natural light or just the walking around and stuff, you feel like you're there. It seems to be the kind of light you would experience if you're walking in this car dealership when they go to blow it all up there at the end. We've seen that, it's one of his fronts for his business. He's very smart about how he does that, also with the diner that he's got. But they look like ordinary places that you've been to before. They're not prettied or gussied up.
Yeah.
They're just there. It's like
the diner talking to
you feel like you're there.
The lighting aspect, so in the diner talking to Leo, is it's very dark on the mist. They're the only ones there, and there's setting. Just going through, when you see James Caan after he talks to Tuesday and Weld in the diner, him going on to the payphone, that scene right there,
Yeah.
Like you said.
Now, you've not seen Miami Vice, the show, correct?
I've seen clips. But I mean, you could tell it was heavily. You could tell he heavily was influenced by this movie first. This is his first attempt at doing it, and then once he Mann got into more movies, he finally got the green light. Did Miami Vice, Tangerine Dream. Were they with him in that show as well too?
They did. No, they did The Keep.
Okay,
which we had talked about cinematography in the movie. So I believe Tangerine Dream scored that as well.
So. But wow, you see just the very opening of this movie, you see the nighttime as he's done talking to Willie Nelson, 23 minutes of the movie. There's a scene there. He's meeting with Leo, and it's raining. And like I said, you just see the lights, the car lights, the city lights behind. It's so dark. Everything in here too is it's just awesome as far as the setting, the atmosphere. Like I said, like it's a very, very good movie. It's a thriller, but it's also like kind of, it's not really, it's like high stakes thriller, but I mean, it's kind of like,
It's not a heist movie in
no,
the
no,
sense I think
no,
a lot
in
of
a
people
sense,
think
like
of
you
it.
normally would think. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yes. And that's what makes it set apart. And that's why I like it a lot more than like any Ocean's 11 or other stuff, Some people
Right.
like that stuff. Like I said, this is a movie that went up to like, let's say how I'd rank it for me personally, being a first time watch. Man, I want to give it, I'd probably give it like a 4.5 out of 5,
Well, you're not the biggest James Caan guy either, are
No,
you?
no. And that's what really impressed me about this. And I think it's because James Caan, I liked him in what movie was he in before? He was like with El Dorado, right? Is that the one we did? We did one of the John Wayne ones.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was the young guy.
He was the young guy there. I liked him in that. So seeing him in this, being kind of like the guy, he knows what he's doing. He's kind of like the Charles Bronson in this. He's kind of like he knows what he's got to do as far as the mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the money if he wants it, but he's smart. He's just playing. He just kind of wants out at the end of the.
He has a goal in mind. He has a number. Yeah. He's not doing it for the kicks or the thrills.
Exactly. He knows like he's basically he's not an amateur, but he knows when to pull a job and when not to pull a job. Because some jobs are just too big of a dream. You're gonna get caught. And that's why he won't do this job for Leo. Leo wants him to do it. And Leo being the big tough guy, it's like, hey, you're gonna do this for me, or we're gonna kill your kid. I own you. I own everything you do. It's like, and I love how he get like James Caan gives Leo like, you got 24 hours, give me my money, or else.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is talk about atmosphere. There's scenes like with Leo and others where you just really feel the tension, and these guys aren't like laughing it up or like that. They take what they do very seriously, and it's refreshing in a way. It's nothing where they're whining or they're complaining or they're bitching or they're pissing and moaning about the man, how life's unfair, any of this other whining ass crap. This is what I want. I'm smart about it. I keep my mouth shut. I don't parade around. I've got a few close people that work with me. That's it. It's hard enough as it is to do this. And like I say, that's really refreshing. And the thing with Michael Mann too, like if you ever watch the show Miami Vice, we can talk about how it was typified 80s TV with music and how it was cool and it'd have pop stuff in there, and everyone always kind of glosses over the clothes and all that. But if you're just watching the show, you don't really remember what the plots are. You go, okay, this is the one where he had this car, then this one got blown up, then he had this different haircut, then Sheena Easton was in it, then one guy his partner got the beard, and that's it. And it's all kind of about this one dude he lives on a boat, and you're like, you don't give a shit about the plots. You like the characters, and just you feel like you're there in Miami, and a lot of shots of old Florida too. I mean, the way it looks, it's incredible. And there's that part of me that goes, they could still do like another short season of Miami Vice with these guys in current Miami with the same characters. I swear to God, it'd be a mega friggin' hit. Especially if Mann was involved in. Oh my God, are you talking crazy? And I think that's one of the things too that as we talk about it being 80s based channels, that we talk about all the different films for better for worse that have been out there in the 80s and all the other decades, and what we like about them and kind of what we don't, or how it works. It doesn't, and everything Mann does in here works.
And that's interesting you talk about that, because like there's a lot of movies where they're gonna do. There's a new movie with Ben Affleck about Nike and stuff like that, and that takes place in the 80s stuff.
Yeah,
you can do movies that take place back in the 80s. You could do Miami Vice if you reboot it, but keep it in the 90s. Don't modernize it. Put it back in the 80s. Bring the payphone back. I'm sure you can do it. And just you can set up a room like in here when he walks. I think they're in the police station.
Mm-hmm.
You see the cubicles, you see all the phones, just the dial tones. Nobody's got cell phones, nobody's got smartphones on there. You can call, okay, page it through here. I'll pick it up on my desk phone right here. I miss little things like that. That's what's really cool about like some of these older movies, and
Yeah, one of the TV shows that really captures the 80s really well is a show on AMC that had Lee Pace in called *Halt and Catch Fire*, which I was dumbfounded. It's a very singular show that deals with like a company trying to create a computer and all that kind of stuff. What goes on, I think it's fantastic. And it's weird because, to your point, everything you talk about is present in there. Well, obviously, we know with the success of Stranger Things, or even like in modern stuff that I wouldn't watch, like say Sabrina, the Netflix show, wherever. I know they have 80s music in there and stuff too. So obviously there's a lot of people that go, if we put some 80s stuff in here, we'll get the older audience, but we can kind of rewrite it and make the characters for our newer generation, see if we can't capture them. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people making films today just don't have their own particular aesthetic to it. And that's why, like, say, with John Wick 4 that we recently covered, I said, this is a strong debut for the guy who did it, and forgetting about the story and all that. I just think the way he did it, the way it looked, was just, I can see where people might go, even with recency bias, oh, this is the best John Wick. I still think it's the first one, but this one, like in my order, was, I think, second, I think, for you as well. But
yeah,
definitely a great film too as well.
Great, I said great music and the atmosphere, and it's a simple A to B story, and that's what makes it stand out from every other movie that came out after this.
Yeah, Misery's coming up in chat too. That's
Misery. I've seen that.
Eraser. Elf.
Elf, yes.
When I see him in Eraser, if you see Eraser, right, was it 96, I think?
He's the bad guy.
And you see this film,
yeah.
I go, I really like him as the bad guy in 96, but a part of me goes, everybody that's like an Arnold fan or young watching Eraser, I feel like if he had the intensity that he had in Heat and Eraser, he would just destroy Arnold.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch.
It's so easy for him to be such a bastard. I love it.
When it comes to Heat, I'll have to go rewatch it, because the first time I watched through it, I just hated it.
Really?
I couldn't get into it. I was younger. I was like my teens.
Right.
It was just too long of a movie. It's just too slow paced for me. All I remember, actually, from watching it, all I remember is like, oh, Val Kilmer's in it. and I think that they have a shootout with the cops because the robbery goes botched. But definitely have to give it a rewatch, see if I still feel the same way about it. But
well,
I like this more than Heat.
The Tom Sizemore had passed away a little while ago when we were reviewing some of the stuff. I forget if it was Heat or Collateral that he was in, and he had a great scene in there. One of the reasons why I give this movie a bit of a nod over Heat Collateral is because I don't try to be dramatic with that stuff, but I like the fact that it really is based around a singular individual, and I think that represents, like, especially with the diner speech and other things about it, that's more recognizable. Whereas when I think of like Heat, obviously it's a collection of professionals, and some of us might like this one more than the other.
It's the Meg, right?
It's cool, and I like that, but because you've got so many great people in it, it's hard to, I think, focus on one person unless it's your guy or your gal or whatever. Not that it's bad by any means. Collateral I like because it just feels more mannish to me than say Heat does and all that, and it's got Tom Cruise in it. And I think it's one of his better performances, Jamie Foxx, or whatever. Although he's fantastic. Law-abiding citizen, which in the hands of Michael Mann would have actually had a real good ending, because that movie still pisses me off. But yeah, that being said, I'll go first with my final thoughts, and I'll hand it over to you. Yeah, if you haven't seen Thief, it's definitely worth it. If you want an 80s vibe, the special kind of vibe, definitely worth watching. Fantastic film, been pining for a long time to cover it, and I was like, man, we just got to do this, and we like to kind of play it by ear a little bit with what we've got going on, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But any other final thoughts or observations you'd like to offer about Thief?
Thief, as far as, like I said, is the movie you're going to want to watch, and then for the scenery, for the music, for James Caan's performance here, pretty much everyone's performance in this movie. And then when you're done watching this, go watch Manhunter.
Yeah, Manhunter is probably one of the better. I didn't even mention that, but keep going. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as far as Manhunter keeps the same kind of atmosphere. It's kind of same vibe as Thief is. At least I think it does. Right. But like I said, this is a hidden gem for me. I'm glad that you recommended it. I was like, I really don't want to watch a James Caan film, but I'll check it out. And I was like, oh, this is actually really good. But yeah, it's just better than Heat. Sorry, that's my hot take.
No, I really do enjoy Heat and Collateral. When you get a Michael Mann film,
be happy that you can like both movies. That's the thing. You're the winning if you can like both things. I did like one more than the other.
And Michael Mann did do, I think it was the TV movie Manhunter with Peterson in it as the detective, and that was, to me, still probably the most realistic adaptation of Hannibal Lecter. Of course, a lot of people, like the TV show that Brian Fuller did as well, which is incredibly stylish and fantastic. Yeah. But again, it's part of that whole 1990s movement of making vampires, gothic emo and not frightening or masculine or sexy, and just more pretty. And and celebrating the horrors that serial killers were do. Whereas
Oh,
you get shows like the TV show Mindhunter, I think it was called, for 2 seasons, where it's really freaking creepy because in the 80s people were trying to figure out all that stuff. And yeah, the TV show that's got Brian Cox in there as Hannibal Lecter is fantastic. It's really good, and again, it's got that Michael Mann vibe to it as well.
yeah.
I
So
wanted to take a minute though for you, because we've already determined what we're going to be doing for Tuesday night. Have you briefly, without giving any spoilers, kind of just suggest what people are in store for Tuesday night?
Tuesday nights, we're for the next couple nights. We covered Tulsa in the past couple of Tuesdays.
Tulsa King, yep.
Tulsa King. So we're going back to Paramount again because there's a new show with Kiefer Sutherland. It's called Rabbit Hole, and it's one of those shows where you need to pay attention to what's going on, because what you're seeing on screen could be a clue or it could be a red herring as far as what the bigger picture is. You're led that you're told one thing, but you're shown other clues that hint at that maybe what you're seeing is not really. Kind of like The Matrix in a sense, a little bit, but more so it's just kind of like a spy thriller, but also a con at the same time, because you got to realize the main guy, Kiefer Sutherland, is a con artist.
Kind of.
Well, he's got his crew, and things happen, but you're like, and you're told stuff about his story, but is it really true or not? You decide. But each the first 2 episodes, I love the shocking endings. It's like, oh my gosh, because I was following through. I'm like, I had to rewatch these. Oh, okay, and then you watch episode 3. It explains more, and it's only gonna be 8 episodes. It's one of the, I said, it's one of those things where, yeah, you're led to believe one thing, but is it really that true? Is that, like I said, I love those kind of stuff like this. I've been loving it. I love the end of one and 2. I haven't watched the third one, but I kind of watched, or not watched, but I read an interview with the showrunners, and they said the focus of the show was pretty much going to focus on a few things. They're not going to advance the plot until season 2.
What I'll say about this for this 3 episodes that we're going to cover on Tuesday night is that obviously it's a weekly drop, which I think is probably the best to do. I never really watched 24, and I know it was super popular for a while. I was never the biggest Sutherland fan. I don't hate him, but he just whatever. He's just there.
He looks really old in the show, but other than that,
he does.
Though,
looks like if it was the 80s, I'd say he's done a hell of a lot of cocaine and coffee and cigarettes, but who knows? Maybe he has. But to me, the show does some of the storytelling things that you don't necessarily always get, where you start off with something that drags you in, a situation, rather than the character. You find out the character through how they handle things. And so you see Kiefer's character deal with a situation early on. You get to see some of the people in his inner circle and what they do, or at least you're told what they do. Other people tell you what they do. You see what he does. It's up to you, to your point, to decide what's really going on. Then they decide to end each episode with a bang, a surprise, a cliffhanger, whatever you want to call it. And then the next episode kind of revisits that and then adds to it. And they do spend some time fleshing out some of the backstory. And all I will say is that where the show impresses me in a way where, like, we covered The Old Man. I really wanted to go in a certain direction and it didn't, but I think it was done well and it modernized, kind of like current day political spy stuff. I will say this about Rabbit Hole. Once you see episode 3, you'll go, okay, I really know, I think, what the setup is here, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And to your point, when you go back and watch even the opening, I'll call it bar scene, you realize that the way it's shot, you're watching something, but other stuff is going on. Yes. And I'll leave it to you to figure out if it's a con, if it's a scam, if it's legit. It's that old classic thing of, hey, we're watching. Exactly. There's a lot of little, not trickery, sleight of hand stuff that pisses you off in here, because it almost did me in the second episode. But once you go, shit, I see why they're doing that. This, I think, is probably one of the most ambitious type of TV shows that is trying to capture the current modern day political climate, not just in America, but worldwide. I don't know if it's going to go there. I can't tell.
Yeah.
But from what episode 3 suggests to me, I'm going, shit, they're really trying to hit a home run here. I'm impressed that a show would even attempt to tackle that, because of how opinionated people are here in the States and around the world with the current state of affairs, no matter where you live. And of course, we're just trying to be entertained and have fun. But yeah, episode 3 hooked me. After 2, I was ready to almost give it up. But when I watched 3, I went, okay, it's clicking. It's clicking.
The main thing is that you don't know who you're supposed to trust because the main character doesn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, so like I said,
in a roundabout way, you could say it has to deal with family relationships. And a strong family is the best family.
The only thing they dropped the ball on is on having Donald Sutherland play his father.
Who?
Donald
That's
Sutherland.
Vance, bro. Oh, stop.
I know.
Okay.
I know it is. I was just saying, having him play his father in the show, his real life father. Like, what the heck?
You could argue that Thief, the movie with James Caan, is about, if you're a strong family man, you hold the family together, you do what's right.
Yes. You take out the threat, you protect your family,
Yeah, you are the provider and you are the protector. That is your role, and boom, once that's acknowledged, movie's over. Anything else you need to plug, RDV?
No, that's about it. For those of you who check out the Geeky Puppet Show, if you're a fan over there, there will be a reading uploaded over there, like a little 15-minute reading. Other than that, won't see you guys till Tuesday.
Do you have any thing that you need to mention about Twitch?
Oh, we're on Twitch, Geeky Puppet Show. You can look it up on there if you want to. We broadcast to YouTube and Twitch. So it's just another way to pull. Really, Twitch for us is we're just trying to pull people from Twitch, let us know that we're on YouTube, because YouTube is pretty much where our main hub is.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, and I know you handle the Instagram stuff here for the Xtreme Movie Show too. So, I just wanted to thank everybody for showing up. We've got like 5-6 strong here in chat, which is awesome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the movie.
Ed, we're on Rumble too as well. I haven't really uploading on Rumble because a lot of just no one's really watching it. So.
Yeah, I've tried Daily Motion and a few other things myself at the Extreme Movie Show, but none of them seem to gain any traction. So, as like I say, as we get close to being monetized here, I think it's kind of interesting the way the word gets out too. But having you guys show up and let people know that we're here, whether it's from retweeting or however you guys do it, I think it's incredible. I want to take a moment and thank all of y'all for doing that. You guys choosing to spend some time with us, like I say, is really kind of the best thing. That's why we do it. We have a lot of fun because we do this whether we had one person, 5 or 500 listening to us right now, and we just want to enjoy having a good time with talking about a film, whether we like it or kind of don't like it or whatever. And that's kind of interesting because we do this unscripted, and that's part of the fun too, is that we're talking off the cuff here. But yeah, Thief, James Caan, 1981, Michael Mann. Check it out, guys. Have a good night. I'll see you Tuesday night for our 3-episode review. You're going to check out the 3rd episode, RDB, so that'll be really interesting to see what's going on too. So if you guys have checked it out, it's going to be mostly spoiler free. We're going to talk about more how the rabbit hole is set up a little bit and how it's like the old man and other things too, or whatever else comes to mind. So until then, guys, have a good night. Take care, and as always, stay extreme.
No, rabbits too.